Welcome to another exciting and informative episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast, the place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. And this episode is no different. We definitely got a real business owner in the building today. But before we bring them up, I want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by Shield Wolf Strongholds, a wealth growth and protection company when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to employee benefits, when it comes to retirement planning, when it comes to life insurance. If your plan ain't Shield Wolf, your plan ain't strong. If you are a business owner that wants you and your employees to retire higher than you would have prior, make sure you visit shieldwolfstrong.com or call or text +1 904 822 4262. That's +1 904 822 4262. Now to our guests. Robert Gaines is a business strategist, author, and host of free Time Mastermind Podcast, a U.S. Army veteran and graduate of the University of Louisville. Did I say that right? Robert has spent decades immersed in entrepreneurship, creative problem solving, and the psychology behind why ideas succeed or fail. He is the author of Scintillium, the ultimate guide to generating business, product, and service ideas. The newly revised second edition expands on previous concepts, turning the material into a playbook. Robert is known for blending real-world expertise with accessible storytelling. His background spans small business strategy, content creation, publishing, and community leadership. He runs a group of writers, is launching a publishing company, and has a second book in the works. On podcasts, Robert speaks about creativity, entrepreneurship, idea generation process, LinkedIn presence, building authority, writing books that actually get finished, and how everyday people can transform observations into profitable opportunities. He brings direct, honest, and highly actionable insights that listeners can use the same day. He's also a fellow podcaster, then understanding the importance of showing up on time, prepares and co-promoting each episode he appears on. And we do love that as podcast hosts, if you co-promote the episode. Hey, Robert, thank you so much for coming on the Entreprenudist Podcast.
It's my pleasure. Yes, we need those subscribers, the likes, the follows. So please follow Entreprenudist. And the first thing I did when you invited me on is I follow you on Facebook now. I'm a follower of you on LinkedIn, and I'm a subscriber on YouTube because I believe in reciprocity. People want those likes. Well, you got to give some likes. So that's kind of my vibe. That's how it works. You got to give to get, and in the beginning you have to give a whole lot, and you're not going to get a whole lot back, but the longer you go, you're going to meet a handful of people that are going to transform your business life. And, I learned that lesson way late in life, but somebody else could learn it in their 20s. So.
Absolutely. Reciprocity is the philosophy. Now, I want to go ahead before we get into it. I want to make sure people know about your new book. What should people know about your new book and how to find it?
Sure. Well, I would say the main thing is I wrote it for people that have no idea what they're going to do. Let's say they're working in a cubicle, they're in a dead end job. They want to get out, they want to escape, but they don't know what to get into. You got all these YouTube videos and things on social media. Try this, try that. This book is a real deep dive into investigating what a real good business idea might be, or just a product idea, or just a service idea. The book is also for people that have a current business. Let's say you're a podcaster and you've just got one book for sale, which is my situation. Well, that's why I moved into publishing. I'm working on a second book. So you've got to have a lot of things under your store. And this book also helps you add other things to your store, other things that you can sell. So in other words, multiple streams of revenue, and everything from intellectual property, really intense stuff, to just doing some basic inventions. So that's available on Amazon. It's paperback, hardback. You like Kindle? We got that for you. You want an audiobook? I narrated that myself as well. Now, the only thing I would say to your listeners is the new second edition of the book is available in all of those formats except for the audiobook. The audiobook is still first edition, but give me about 2 weeks and I'll have that new audiobook fresh and up for everybody.
Man. And I'm going to get more into the contents of that book. Is there nothing that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
Yes. I'd say the number one thing is to schedule the time for the writing. So I knew, I had to get so many words done. So at first I was trying how many words I need to write per day and how many pages. And I didn't, because I'd never written anything beyond what you would need to write in, let's say, college, for instance. But now I schedule every day usually from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning. I'm at the desk and I'm writing. And now this second book that I'm working on, it's moving 4 times as fast. It's almost scary because now I'm in the rhythm. But the big thing is, it's not that I really got that much smarter. I just wake up, my phone says be at the desk 8 to 10, and I just sit there and I do work. So I clock in and I work, and I don't play around on the internet and social media. So the big thing is you have to set, just like going to the gym. If you go to the gym during a certain time, you want to get thin, you've got to schedule that in. You got to count your calories. So it's just metrics and timing, really.
Man, you're talking to the wrong person, man. I'm in my second trimester myself, but I'm trying to get this weight down. It's been working. It's been working. What does scintilla mean? Like, what does it actually mean?
Sure, yeah, it's Latin for spark. It means the smallest little spark. And somebody asked me yesterday, it was hilarious. Somebody said, when was the last time you actually heard that word? Well, it's funny. I don't tend to watch the news very much, but a congressman just recently said the word on TV like 2 days ago, which caught me way off guard. But prior to that, I hadn't heard that word used for 15 years. And so I picked that word on purpose because nowadays you've got to stick out. You've got to be different. And if somebody Googles you or looks something up, you want it to be your product. So you have to find that balance, Randolph, between something people know and can pronounce or maybe type, and being unique enough that if they type your name in that word, they're going to find you. So I'm not going to say I struck the perfect balance with the title, but I definitely didn't. I wanted an English word that we do use, just not very often, as the title. So my second book is going to have a much more traditional title. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, hence the name Entreprenudist, right? You want something that's kind of vaguely familiar, but also distinctly different to differentiate yourself. And I know, based off of, you already got that second edition going, and I know you said it's scary how fast this new one is moving after the first one. One of my mentors, Doug Andrew, he's actually a bestseller, and he's one of those people that gets $1 million advances for each book he did. One of the things that he told me, his first book took him over 10 years. And then after that, he's been writing a new book every year since, right? What is that? What do you think that is, to where that first one was such a chore, but now each one after that is so smooth and seamless?
I would get it down to 3 things. Lack of confidence, number one, because you're unsure of yourself. You're like, I suck as a writer. I know I suck as a writer. And I wasn't a very good writer when I started. I'm not saying I'm great now, but I've written hundreds of pages since I started. So I have that skill under my belt. So number one, it's just poor self-worth. You just don't think you're writing, and you have a lot of second guessing, and you scratch a lot of stuff out and you throw a lot of pages away. So you go through that, and you can waste months or years doing that. Number 2, you don't have structures in place because you've never done it before, just like I didn't. So now I have the schedule, I have the timers, I have reminders. So I have this structure that keeps me aligned. And then second is just really the experience. So if you want to be good at shooting free throws, look at those guys. They'll spend hours just shooting free throws, and they shoot these shots under tension. And you're like, my God, how do they do it? Because at that moment, they don't even have to think about it when it happens. So writing for me, I'm not going to say writing is easy, but if somebody had told me 2 years ago, Robert, you need to write 12 pages tomorrow. Now that's still a lot. I'm not going to lie. But if I had to do it today, I could do it, but I couldn't have done it 12 years ago. And here's I want people to forget everything else I just said and remember this. If you spend time honing your skill as a writer, it will fix a lot of things in your life, because when you text your mother, when you text your friend, or you send an email trying to get a business deal going, if your writing is better, everything gets better. Your relationship, think about how much of our communication is written. So if you just start to up your skill as a writer by 10%, It's going to change everything. Your pitches, you're trying to get a date, you're on a dating site and you're writing to them. You've got to be persuasive. So if you learn the art of writing and just get a little bit better, it's going to change every aspect of both your personal life and your business. And there's not too many things that you can do that'll affect both that fast.
Oh, yeah. A powerful affirmation every day in every way. I'm getting better and better. And it seems like you've embodied that. Another thing that my mentor, Doug, told me is that when you put out that first edition, because I know that you have a lot of the same thought patterns that I have, because you got on your second edition. One thing he said is that you have to explicitly ask people to give you feedback. There are so many unsolicited advice people, and usually unsolicited advice is what you pay worth what you paid for it. But he said when you explicitly ask people, say, hey, please look for my grammatical errors. Please look for where concepts maybe didn't connect the way they should have. And please let me know, and then put out that second edition. Did you approach it that way, or how did you end up with the second edition?
Great question. So the first edition, and like I said before the pre-interview, you can ask me anything because I don't hide anything. I'll tell you the good stuff. I'll tell you the bad stuff too. So the first time around, I'm a big fan of working with contractors. I've been on Upwork for years. I've had 42 contracts on Upwork where I've hired people to do everything from create a logo to edit the book. So the first time around with the first edition, because I really didn't know what I was doing, I went to an editor. Now, this guy had been in the business 42 years. He was in Los Angeles. He had an impressive resume. He was the guy, and unfortunately, here's the problem. He had the right kind of resume. It was about $1,000 to edit the book. Well, the book wasn't quite done yet. And I had explained all that. Now, I've been a business guy for a long time, so I understand dealings have a lot to do with expectations. So I always explicitly spell out what my expectations are so that we know if the contract's being violated or not. I hate to put it that way, but I've had enough bad situations. I know how to try to prevent them from happening. Mm-hmm. And so he knew up front the book wasn't done and my expectations. So I hired a professional, and even with all of his skill and talent and many years in the business, he didn't treat that book like it was his. Mm. And he didn't bring me into the process. And then later, much later, after I felt like that money was wasted, because knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have had to have hired him. But for those of you out there that are interested in being writers, there are 3 or 4 different types of developers at different stages of writing. So there's a developmental editor, which is what I really needed. This guy was kind of the tail end guy that you needed, but I didn't know there were 4 different type of editors. I'm writing my book for the first time. So here's the thing, Randolph, you're going to make mistakes. So write that book. I think now with AI, I would rather give it to AI than to give it to a human proofreader, because I don't know anybody in my personal life I want to burden with 150 pages. So I do think feedback is good, but you can actually give that book to multiple versions of AI. And now just the AI from a year ago to now is so much better. I'm having conversations. I use ChatGPT, the paid version, 5.2, I think I'm on. And I have deep conversations. We debate over where this paragraph needs to be and different things. I don't have it write the material for me. That'd be a huge mistake, because nobody wants an AI written book. They all suck. I've not seen one that was any good. So anyway, to answer your question, the first time I hired a contractor, I felt like the money was wasted. It was $1,000. That's a lot of money to anybody. I don't care who you are. And then the second time around, I'm using several different versions of AI. Sometimes I use Grammarly for free, and I use my paid ChatGPT account to do the proofreading and editing.
Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of people that wish they can quantum leap to the proofreading and editing stage, but how do you decide on what to write about?
The first time I had, and I talk about it in the book. So whenever I run into a problem that I have no idea, I'm getting into something I don't know anything about. Usually I'll go get, and I'm not exaggerating, I'll go get 3 to 5 books about it, and I'll read it over the weekend or over a week. Because what I've learned is all of the principles in the universe, whether it's relationships or business, the principles are the same. I just need to understand the language of a business and maybe some nuances of how it works. So I go to the woodshed, I get all of that information, put those 3 to 5 books in my head, and then I charge ahead. Well, I was in a situation where I was working as a consultant for a company, and they wanted me initially just to help them with some e-commerce stuff, which is not necessarily my specialty, by the way, but one aspect of it was. And then they realized when I'm already committed to this project that they weren't going to be able to get all of these products at these prices that they thought. So their whole business model started falling apart. And they were like, Robert, what about if we come up with our own products? And I was like, you mean from like the ground up, from scratch? Like I'm committed to this project. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a nightmare. So I thought, okay, I'll do some research. So I went out, got on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and started looking for a book about how to come up with product ideas from scratch, to go from a blank piece of paper to the end of this, you're going to have a product that you can sell. Randolph, there was no book out there. No. Still, there's none. There is now, and it's in its second edition. So I wrote the book to the problem that I was trying to solve. So 20% of the book I already had in my head, because what did I just say before? The principles of business are the same. Marketing is going to be the same 1,000 years from now. We've got old clay tablets from 2,000 years ago, and they're talking about stuff that's the same stuff we're talking about now. So 20% I had, and then so the short answer to your question, I was trying to solve that problem. And then I just wrote down single sentences of what I thought I could contribute to that book. And I made a decision to myself, can I bring a book to market that's going to be worth reading? Because I wanted it to be able to help people. And if I didn't feel confident that they could come out of this book with an idea, I wouldn't have written it. So I just did research and that was the writing part was not as hard as the researching, because I had to go back and check all of my assumptions. With the second book, by the time I got done with the first book, I realized, okay, the next problem they're going to have, I'm thinking like a chess player now. So now they have the product, or now they have the service. They're done with Scintilla. What are they going to need next? They're going to need a network, because how are you going to bring that product to market? You need to know people. So the next book is about halfway done, and it's focused on LinkedIn and networking and building relationships with people.
Oh man, I'm already thinking about picking up that book. So, and that's a good idea as an author to essentially follow the next step in the development process from the last book. So of course, we're speaking about nonfiction books. Actually, I guess fiction books kind of do the same thing. Are there differences in how one would approach based off what you've discovered when it comes to fiction and nonfiction, or are you more so got more proficiency in the nonfiction space? Great question, Randolph. So the one thing I didn't do in Scintilla that I should have, there's not a lot of stories in there. I wanted a short, nuts and bolts, answer the question, solve my problem, I want a service. I don't want to know much about Robert Gaines. So there's not a lot of me or my personal story in the book, because look, I'm a nobody. No, I'm not Dr. Phil. Nobody cares about my personal life. So there's not a whole lot of that. There's a little bit more in the second book. There's more storytelling in the second book because it's about relationships. So this first one is very, very nonfiction, very nuts and bolts, very left brain logical. This next book, as I talk about relationships, I am talking about personal situations I've had, bad situations, bad deals that went down, and what the psychology was of that. So in that, yes, I am telling a story, and it is a little bit more like fiction. And there's not many fiction books out there that are in the business genre, but one of them is actually my favorite. It's called The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt. It's fallen out of popularity. It was really popular in the 80s, but it's basically a guide of how to run your business efficiently. But it was written as a novel. You could pick it up and get connected with the characters and, what's Snooki going to do? There's kind of that element of it. And my book doesn't have that. But again, to more specifically answer your question, if someone is a good storyteller where they can, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end, there's characters that you care about. I don't write that way, but if you do, yes, it absolutely will help your writing and you'll be a more popular author. But again, I'm more of a recipe book. You go you just want to know how to cook it. You don't need a story. You just, how much salt do I need to put in this? And that's the way that I write. Oh yeah, one of my favorite fiction books that also has practical information is called "The Greatest Salesman in the World" by Og
Oh,
Mandino.
yeah, classic.
He starts it as a story, but then he starts getting into the scrolls, which is each chapter. And yeah, you do have that connection to Hafid and the different people in the story to basically talk to the right and the left side of the brain, like you said. And there are right brain people, there are left brain people, and there are a hybrid of both. And as the author, seems like what you're saying is you have to decide which brain you want to talk to.
That's right. Well, even in my book, because I thought this book, I wanted to write it in such a way that it appealed to both people. So I'm not the type that will meditate and hum and do breathing and affirmations and creative visualization, but I talk about that in there. So if someone is more, they want to burn incense when they're coming up with an idea, there's something in there for them too, believe it or not. I mean, obviously it's written mostly the logical way, which is the way that I come up with things. Like you could do searches, you could do patent searches. There's all this like really dry, but really interesting ways to come up with great ideas, or there's ways to kind of trick your brain to be more creative. And that's the more fun part of the book, really, is how to kind of tease those great ideas out of your subconscious. So that does get covered.
Oh yeah, you do have to trick your brain. One of the things that I'm sure I heard from somebody else, and my experience shows that you as an individual can be your best friend and your worst enemy. And you do have to trick that enemy in your brain to collaborate. And that enemy doesn't even realize that they're doing it. But once again, it's because you put in those procedures in place. So moving with as an author, which is when every book is like a small business, in my opinion. How do you, when you run into these things, how do you deal with large obstacles, whether it's writing a book or as a business owner, not making a book? How do you deal with large business obstacles?
Well, even in the book itself, I talk about the difference between what Stephen Pressfield is. For most writers are aware of Stephen Pressfield. He wrote the book, The War of Art. And, he's kind of like the David Goggins of writing. You just get in the chair and start writing, just do it, but he's also very practical in his information. So one thing I'll say, and I'll make this a short answer for once. The thing that you're trying to avoid, that's the dragon you need to slay. So that thing you're putting off, doing the, if your goal is, we were talking earlier, because I'd like to lose about 10 pounds, and I'm finally now meal prepping. And so I had to get organized. I had to start weighing the food, writing down calories. It's not fun. I don't like it, but I know if I do it consistently, I'm going to lose weight because it's just math. It's going to happen. So I would say when you run into obstacles, you have to attack them very early. The thing that you've been putting off, that's the dragon in the cave that if you slay it, that's when you get the gold. And that's as short as I could say it.
Oh, man. The thing that you've been putting off, that's the dragon in the cave, that if you slay it, that's when you get to the goal. That is very powerful, right? All truths are parallel. You do have to get past things to get to what you see as being that definition of success. Speaking of that book that I mentioned, he says you can line up 100 successful men and ask them what their definition of success is, and all of them are going to say something different. But once you figure out what your goal is, then that's when you see the dragon, right? You would have never went into that cave if you didn't want the goal. But once you got in that cave, you saw that dragon. And it seems like what you're saying, a lot of people, they either retreat or they fight. But if you choose to fight, that's when you can reach that definition. So speaking of fight, I know a lot of people have fights about intellectual property. What is intellectual property?
Sure. Your personal intellectual property is your rights to your own material. And what's really changed in this, not just in the age of AI, but in the age of social media, when you write content, Facebook owns that content. Nobody reads their end user license agreement. when your iPhone did its last update, did you read that? No, you didn't. I didn't read it either. But basically almost everything you do is theirs. But when you start to create something, that takes a year or two or three, or like your friend that took 10 years, and he creates this masterpiece, whether it be an album, a beat, or a whole book, you want to protect that. So an intellectual property is something that could be musical, it could be written, it could be visual, a film, it could be a painting. You take a photo of your painting, and then next thing you know, your painting gets converted into a popular, let's say, iPhone screensaver background, and they're selling it. So then you've lost control of your intellectual property. So yeah, anything that you spend time on, even your quotes, are intellectual property. If you come up with something interesting, like earlier I was quoting, that didn't come from my brain. That was Stephen Pressfield. That's his genius, not mine. But yeah, intellectual property is it's like your intellectual land, and you have to protect it, because a man much smarter than me said to me a long time ago, he said, "Robert, you only own what you can defend." And that also is true for intellectual properties. If you don't register your stuff, I know this turns a lot of people off, but I'm a big fan of having an attorney on retainer. It doesn't cost that much. People go, "Oh," I'm telling you, the number of times I've been able to say, "Well, let me get my attorney on the phone." And even if I get pulled over by the police, you'll never see a cop get more polite than the moment that I put when you put a police officer on a speakerphone, you won't believe how suddenly polite they'll become. That's worth having an attorney in and of themselves. I know I'm getting sidetracked here, but I love watching that cop's face change when I get my attorney on speakerphone. It just really changes the vibration of the conversation.
Oh yeah, that may seem like a segue to the untrained listener, right? But what you're really saying is, when you're dealing with intellectual property, it's a lot of litigious things that might come on, especially if it's good intellectual property. Let's say you do come across some good intellectual property that was properly registered, and the person who owns it wants to sell it. How do you buy intellectual properties?
Sure. Well, it always helps if you've got an intellectual property attorney writing the contract, but the contract can be a couple of different things. You don't always have to just own what they have. Sometimes you just license what they have. Look at NFL merch. I'm not going to buy because I'm here in Florida. I'm not a Miami Dolphins fan, but it's the first team I could think of. But, you don't have to buy the Miami Dolphins brand or logo. You can license it. You can just write to them and say, "Hey, I've got an idea for this little pin or a hat or something." And you get a license agreement to put that image on there. So that's a version of purchasing intellectual property. In the book, and I mean this sincerely, I think the cheapest thing that people can invest in right now, I know everybody's Bitcoin and everything else, that's great. But right now, I think intellectual properties have never been cheaper. I think it's a great thing to invest in. I'm got several deals in the works right now. Most of them I can't talk about because it would ruin them if I brought them out publicly. But I'm trying to buy some book rights. Particularly, I like book rights. So I'm trying to buy book rights from people. And another big thing that I like to do is, let's say you write a book, or you come to me and you say, "Robert, I like your book, Scintilla. I'm from Brazil, and I want to buy the Portuguese rights to your book." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And you could probably buy that from, honestly, you could probably buy that from me really cheap. I'd probably sell it to you for about $1,500. So if you've got a network in Brazil and you're a business guy and you want more books in your store, so to speak, like what we were talking about earlier, you just approach a guy like me and say, "Hey, are you planning to publish that in Portuguese?" Which I'm not. You give me $1,500, I'll give you an unlimited agreement to translate the book and publish it in Portuguese. And you can have that for the rest of your life. And now you have a book on your shelf that you've published, and you're going to make royalties on that book forever, as long as you still have it on Amazon or whatever platform it is. So that's how you could broker one deal. And I think multiple language deals, you can get stuff really cheap. And you'd be shocked, Randolph, how many major U.S. business books that you and I know if I mention the title, you'd know it right off the top, that aren't available in Spanish. And then go Google how many Spanish speaking people are in the Western Hemisphere. It's a huge market. So I think buying intellectual properties I wish more people knew about it, because I think it's a pathway to growth.
Oh yeah, that was one of the ideas that I had that just came and went, and somebody else took advantage of it. Back when I was, and I don't mean the book, but I mean the Spanish versus English. I was looking at URLs, and the shorter the URL, the more valuable it is, right? So, for example, and I'm just throwing out numbers. You might see blue.com, and blue.com might be worth over $100,000. But then when I looked up azul.com, it was available. And I'm like, well, I said, it would be a great idea, an idea I didn't act on. It'd be a great idea if I bought these one-word domains, but the Spanish version, right? Never acted on it. But then, of course, 10 plus years, almost 20 years later, I see that somebody acted on it. And just like you said, you'd be surprised how many Spanish versus English versions, or any other languages that you can take advantage of. Not, maybe that's the wrong word. You can utilize advantage of and actually be able to generate some money.
Right. Well, even in the book, I mentioned that Amazon, who owns the rights to the extension .book. So you got .net, .org, .com. Amazon exclusively owns .book. So no person out there owns their URL in a .book. And I don't know how I came about this information. And unfortunately, I do know that it was given to me in a legitimate way. But in the book, I mentioned that Amazon is thinking about selling those URLs, like setting up a service like GoDaddy, but they're only going to sell the .book. So now that's like finding a country whose resources have never been tapped. Every major book that's ever been published is going to need a .book. Every book that's coming out. So you could sit around all day and watch podcasts and hear these authors say, yeah, this is the title of my book. Go check to see if they have their rights. If they don't, you can pick them up and sell them back to the guy. I hate to say that, but people do that. Yeah. That's in the book too. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's true. What you're saying, depending on your mindset, you should have reached out to them and let them know, and this, that, and the third. Hey, it is what it is. Competition is competition. And speaking of competition, you do mention that in your book, and you say to stay away from it. What do you mean by that?
Sure. Yeah. So mostly what people do is, let's say you go to a restaurant and, so let's just say it's hot dogs, and you think to yourself, okay, I'm paying I haven't been into a Hooters in a very, very long time, but a Hooters hot dog last time I was in there was like $9, something crazy. It was a hot dog, $10. And most people say, you know what? I could imitate this. I'm going to sell a cheaper. I can do that for $7. Well, they just want to they want to run right up against them and be a competitor, which is the hardest thing to do. And you also don't want to use price as a strategy. Being the cheapest guy in the block, that's a tough business. Do you really want to be the Walmart of hot dogs, or the Walmart of, no, you don't. No, you don't. You want to be Apple. You want to be exclusive. You want to be Fendi. You want to be. So what I talk about in the book is, instead of, because there's three ways you can go against a product. You can be a competitor. You can be complementary. It's funny, I always get to this and then I forget the third C when I'm on the spot.
Competitive, complementary,
and companion. So companion, obviously things go together like a printer and the ink. Complementary is everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone case. That case complements it. So in this, and it's funny because I'm narrating that chapter in the audiobook. I narrated that just today. And I added some extra stuff that wasn't in the print book. And what I said there is that the big opportunity, I think, is in a complementary product. So to give your audience a real world example, so they don't think I'm just talking about theoretical. Let's say you're really up on a particular product and you know that they're going to release something really big, let's say February 14th, 2026, you know somebody's going to, a purse maker is going to release this type of purse. So you start working on that. If you know the dimensions of that bag and what it's going to be used for and the texture, you could get and create another product that goes along with it. Now, I do say in the book, don't go after the really, really, really big stuff like Gucci, because maybe everybody else is thinking that thing, but there are products a little further that are not as well known, maybe something in an industry that you know really well, and you know there are products coming out. You could look at an existing product and say, how can I make this better? How can I make it easier to carry? How can I make it more functional? The reason why I suggest that in the book is it's so much of a faster way to a product, because there's already an existing demand for something that your product would technically attach to. So, it's hard to kind of get into that depth on a podcast, but you could see how far the rabbit hole could go, where you could just create something that attaches to something that's already popular, and then it's going to sell like hotcakes. Because every time, when you go on Amazon right now and you're looking for an iPhone case, what else do you find? You find the iPhone lens cover. You find the iPhone wallet. You find, so there's all this mess of stuff you have to go through. So you would basically be placing yourself in that situation where when somebody is looking for that product, they're also going to find your product, which cuts down on your marketing and sales, on your costs of your marketing and sales.
Oh yeah, that complementary. It sounds like a cool proposition, and words aren't an accident, right? That complementary has the same base word as compliment. And I always like to tell people compliments are great. I love compliments, but the best compliment is a referral. And one of the best way to get compliments and that lead to referrals is LinkedIn. How have you been utilizing LinkedIn based off of the way of thinking, based off the products and IPs and the connections that you're trying to make? How are you utilizing it, and how should people utilize it?
Well, that was a real education, Randolph, because that's why my second book is about LinkedIn and networking. I'm using LinkedIn as a brand because it's almost like this complimentary thing. I know people know LinkedIn, so I'm going to put that in the title, but I'm using that as a vehicle to write this book. But the crazy things that I've learned about LinkedIn, it's true with almost all social media, but on LinkedIn, if you post something, that lives for about 2 hours. If it doesn't catch fire or a couple of people in your network look at it, it dies. It doesn't go anywhere. If a couple of people in your network look at your content, then LinkedIn may start to suggest it to people outside of your content. Unfortunately, the most popular thing I ever wrote on LinkedIn was something I'm not very proud of. I was bombing a Disney movie, and I'm normally really positive on the internet. I really try to be, but I was punching up on Tron Ares and which wasn't necessarily a bad film. But it went crazy. It got 17,000 impressions, and I thought, man, here I am, an author. I want them to buy my book. I don't care what people think about, what my opinion of a movie is. But so going back to what we were saying in the very beginning of the conversation, when I sit down to write, I have 2 dedicated hours to do that. According to Gary Vaynerchuk, the genius of social media, for a LinkedIn presence, you have to post consistently. He says a minimum of 5 times a day. I don't do that, but obviously as I get closer to publishing that book on LinkedIn, I'm going to have to start doing the right thing and being a lot more consistent with the content, because it's hard, even though I write and I know how to write now, to write 5 engaging posts and not to lean on AI and just put something silly up there, or just, what people just throw a motivational quote up there. Man, you got to tell a story. You got to grab their attention. And that's tough to do 5 times a day, every day. But if LinkedIn is if your demographic, whatever you're selling, if your client or your perfect customer is on LinkedIn, then that's where you need to be. I'm very much against being on TikTok and Instagram if that's not your audience. I'm a nonfiction business author. LinkedIn is the place for me, not Facebook. So I'm investing a lot more time in the place where I'm going to get treated best for what I have to offer. Also, too, for your audience, I think the LinkedIn income level And I forget what the education bracket is, but I know that LinkedIn users on average are more educated than Facebook. But the income difference, if you have a luxury or a high-end product, believe it or not, the average income on LinkedIn, I think, is 20% higher than Facebook on average. So the people with money, they're on LinkedIn. Now, granted, if you're selling a luxury brand to young men, LinkedIn's probably, now you want to be on TikTok and Instagram. But if you're going after business, you want high income business people, I wouldn't waste a minute on Facebook. Not at all.
Oh, yeah. You definitely got to decide what's important to you. And more importantly, you got to decide what's more important to your target demographic. A lot of people don't even know what a customer persona is, let alone have actually created a customer persona. What are the demographics? What are the behaviors? What are the jobs to be done? What are the things that your ideal customer finds important? And it sounds like that you have that customer persona, and you know that customers on LinkedIn. Now, the trade-off to finding customers on LinkedIn, I believe, and I know this to be true, if you ever decided to pay for advertising, it gets very expensive per click on LinkedIn compared to Facebook. Are you a strictly organic type of guy, or are you willing to and have paid for ads?
I'm strictly organic. The only exception to that is there will be a time where I'm going to pay for ads on Amazon for the book, because the highest, and your audience can check me out on this. They can Google it or ask AI. But the highest return on investment, if you're in the business of selling books, the highest return on investment for advertising is Amazon ads, because people are already going there to buy books. So, while somebody's going to buy Think and Grow Rich or The Go Giver or The Richest Man in Babylon, boom, Scintilla's going to pop up there. That would be the only time that I would pay, because that's a very highly specific, but everything else is organic. Now, what are we talking about when we say organic? Because I don't think this gets discussed as much. We're talking about time. So you can either pay for ads, or you can do organic, which means your time, which means money. To me, Randolph, I don't distinguish the difference between time and money. They are the same thing, because your time has a numerical value. So I know organic is the new buzzword, but that just means you're going to be busting your neck and spending, do you really want to spend 20 hours a week growing your LinkedIn? So you have to make sure that's your audience. And I'll admit to a mistake too. You look at my first book, Scintilla, that's a very general audience. That's anybody that wants an idea, that wants to escape from their job. There's no avatar there. That's anybody who needs an idea. So, of course, it's very difficult to market. And back when I did first run Amazon ads, it had a hard time finding an audience, because the worst thing you can hear from a fellow entrepreneur is, I want to sell my product to everybody, because it doesn't work. So this first book, I enjoyed writing it. It was a problem that I wanted to solve, and I'm very proud of it. But this next book solves a much more specific set of problems. So again, like you said earlier, I'm evolving and trying to get better and stronger with each project that I go through.
Oh, yeah. There are riches in the niches, as they say, riches in the niches. And so it's one of the things that, because, we've been beating up the left side of the brain. So just to touch in on what we just discussed, let's go ahead and talk to the right side of the brain. I, of course, know a lot of people, and I've met a lot of people that have veterans, people who've been in the military. And one thing that I would observe, whether it was myself saying it or somebody else saying it, thank you for your service. Okay. I would notice, or I didn't say it. Hey, because I'm going to tell you why. I would notice the body language of those people, right? They would say, thank you or acknowledge it. But I would notice that the body language wasn't as accepting. And then I finally would ask, I asked multiple people, I say, hey, I'm noticing that when people say thank you for your service, majority of the military people, their body language isn't as joyous as I thought it would be. I say, what's up? And I say, what's a better thing to say? And what I found out is the best question when you hear that somebody was in the military is, what made you join? So, Robert, what made you join?
Yeah, I went in at 19, so I didn't go in right at the end of high school. I partied for a year, and I was lost. So there was really two major decisions driving it. So I went in August 30th of 1990. So we had this huge buildup of ground troops, and we knew that there was going to be an impending attack. So for those that don't remember, the country of Iraq invaded a country called Kuwait, and Kuwait asked for our help, and we went over there and we said we're gonna get going. So troops had already been started to move over there, and although I'm not from a really religious family, there was a lot of talk in the household about, this could be the big one. This is a big war in the Middle East. This could be World War III, the end of the world. There was talk that people in the 90s were in 1990 were talking that way, because at the time Iraq had like the fourth best trained or fourth largest standing army, the Republican Guard. I mean, it was hyped up. It was like a major bowl game for football. And I thought about the biblical aspects of it. And then also I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very bad in math, and I knew that academically I couldn't hack it in college, and I'm being as honest as I can. I knew I wasn't going to make it. I didn't even bother taking the SAT. That's how bad I was in math. And between those two things, between this kind of biblical, this could be the big one, and do I really want to miss out on this? If we're fighting evil, if that's what this is about, that's, I'm telling you what a naive 19-year-old kid was thinking, not what I'm thinking. I have very, very different views now. But yeah, that's what put me in. The first 3 years, Randolph, were great. I was stationed in Germany. I did not go to the war, which was surprising because I was in artillery. You'd think I'd be right there. But I had a great time in Germany. I still have friends from over there that I have now. First 3 years were great, and then they got rid of the weapon system. And then the last 5 years, I was in the medical field in the Army, and I do not have fond memories of the last 5 years. But I did 8 full-time. They can't even, it's because I spent so many years in, they'd call you up before they call me back in, because I did the full 8-year commitment. But yeah. It did, it opened some doors and straightened me out and gave me some direction. And at the end of the 8 years, I had a better idea, but I wasn't ready to be out there in them streets.
Oh yeah. And that's what, that's the common answer that I get from people. Say, hey man, I had nothing else going on. And then to me, that's what traced back maybe that feeling of, you're thanking me for my service, not realizing, hey, I just joined because that was the best option that I had at the time. And it's that self-awareness, sure. and knowing that in yourself, and right. And then finally getting the opportunity to say that out loud when somebody asks, what made you join? So for people listening, try that out. Next time you hear that somebody was in the military, instead of saying thank you for your service, try asking them what made you join, and you will get this very, very honest and self-aware answer that Robert just gave us.
And I knew that town wasn't for me. I mean, I love my hometown, and we were joking earlier in the intro. People from outside my city, they say Louisville or Louisville. And we always joke that we could do a, like a citizens, a Kentucky stateship citizens exam, asking them to pronounce the city name, because locally we say Louisville. Just imagine your mouth is full of hot potatoes and you say it real Louisville. So when I say Louisville when I'm on interviews, but then I go back home and I talk just like, a code switch, but I enjoy that. We have a really rich, fun accent at home. But as much as I love my hometown, it's a river city like New Orleans, but I knew by 16 that I was like, man, I'm not staying here. I'm not going to build a life here. And I never did. I went back to university about 3.5 years there. And that was it, man. As soon as I got graduated, I was gone. I mean, I love people there and very close with them, but yeah, it wasn't for me. So for a lot of people, the military is a great option to do a relocation, because they'll put you on the bus and take you to Fort Bragg, North Carolina,
Oh yeah. Self-awareness is key. Robert, is there a question that I did not ask you that I should have?
No, you hit it all. That's funny. I asked that on my podcast too. No, I think we did it. I got to talk about the book, and it was a real conversation. I like getting in and talking about the real motivations and the mistakes and the, I know a lot as a host myself. I know a lot of people come on and they try to project this persona. Man, that's not me. That's not me. I've learned a lot more from my mistakes ever than I did the handful of successes I've had. And I'm still making mistakes because I keep shooting my shot. I got another book. I got doing the publishing company. I guarantee I'm going to fall on my face a bunch of times, but I just keep pulling triggers and something big is going to happen because I can feel the momentum. And going back to what you said earlier about how do you deal with obstacles? You can only deal with an obstacle by momentum. Just lean forward and your body will do the rest. Let your gravity pull you forward. That's it.
And that is one of the common denominators with successful people, whatever their definition of success is their healthy relationship with failure. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It is a part of success. And one last question, what's the description of the best person that we can introduce you to?
That's a much tougher question. I won't go on a big, long thing, but a lot of people that do what I do, Randolph, they have what they call a value ladder. So in other words, they want you to buy the book and then they're going to get you in their coaching program and then they're going to work you up what's called a value ladder. That's not me, man. I just want to sell a book and I want to help you write your book. So I'm kind of the inverse of what a lot of people are. All I want to do is sell copies of my book. I want people to connect to me on LinkedIn. I helped a lady in Nicaragua the other night upload her book to KDP. It was over the course of a couple of days, it took about 6 hours of my personal time. I didn't charge her anything. She's a first-time author now. The family was screaming in the background when she finally got it up and could see her cover. I'm that guy. I'm here to help you. And if we can figure out a way to help each other down the line, that's great. But other than that, I'm just trying to sell a book. I'm not trying to get rich or get $5,000 out of your pocket for my super duper coaching program. I'm not that guy.
Oh man, I might be reaching out to you soon because I've had a book on pre-order for over a year now, right? It's actually called The Miracle Money Vehicle: How to Make Money Make Babies. And I'm almost finished. It's one of those things to where I stopped trying to be perfect, but just get the ideas out. And on my cover, it already says first edition. Like I already know that I'm going to be explicitly asking people who read it to give me feedback, look for the grammatical errors, look for the concepts that could be better explained, and tend to get out there. And you're very, very inspirational. And I'll go ahead and admit it. Even though I know for a fact the book is going to help a lot of people, all it is a glorified business card. I'm definitely trying to put them on the first step of my value ladder, and it's very humbling to have somebody say, "Hey, no, this is my business model. That this isn't the first step. This is what I'm selling." Right? First, you sell the cake, then you sell the recipe. Robert, please, one more time, let people know who you are, what do you do, and how they can get in touch.
Absolutely. My name is Robert Gaines. Spend a lot more time on LinkedIn. So come find me over there. Scintilla. This is the hardcover. It's available as a Kindle, hardcover, softcover. The first edition audiobook. And if you can wait about 2 weeks, if you like audiobooks like I do, wait about 2, maybe 3 weeks. And the second edition audiobook will be up. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but I do have a free writers group. It's not very big on LinkedIn. It's a little bit bigger on Facebook. And it's just there. I share ideas and mistakes that I made, like the editor spending too much for that, how to get your book uploaded onto KDP. A lot of people don't know how to do that. So I go through all the technical, and when I run into a problem, I go post about it so that other people don't have that problem. So if you're trying to write a book and you need motivation, it's like a mastermind group, except like I said, everything I do is free. So if you need free help, I sincerely mean this, reach out to me. I'm always happy to help.
Man, that's value. A lot of people hear the quote is more blessed to give than to receive. And some people hear that means that thinks you should be a destitute, poor person walking around giving everything. But the people who are in the know, the people who know what it really means, it actually is almost selfish when you know the more you give with a very purposeful and joy is hard, the more you get back. It's funny. The people who don't know that universal concept of giving and receiving, because I know you know it, Robert, because you're giving away for free, but I'm almost positive you've already made the correlation that the more you give, the more you get.
That's true. Yeah. And well, I have I don't have a scarcity mentality. I have an abundance mentality. And Randolph, I'm being serious. There's enough out there for everybody, more than enough out there. This is a big planet with a lot of research. There's enough for everybody to have the life of their dreams, and your success takes nothing away from me. I hope you get, I have a podcast too. I'm on YouTube too, but I still hope you get as many subscribers. I hope you get more subscribers than me. I hope you sell more books than I do, because your wealth and your success takes absolutely nothing away from me, because there's enough for everybody. All they got to do is just put the effort in.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on what you just said, think about how many correlations money has to water, streams of income, cash flow. When you go to the strip club and you throw the ones, they call it making it rain. Right. When you're able to get to your money when you want to, they call it liquid, right? It's called currency, just like the currency of water, right? And I've been hearing since I was single digits that water was running out. And I just turned 40 this month, and water has not ran out yet. There is as much money as there is water in this world, and somebody doesn't have to lose for you to win. This has been another exciting and informative episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast, a place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. I'm your host, Randolph Love III. And remember, if you're listening to our voices, make sure you check out the show notes where you can get more information about Robert. You can also click the link to see the video of our beautiful and immaculate ebony and ivory faces in your places. Until next time, don't play with it, stay with it until you make pay with it. This is the Entreprenudist Podcast, signing off.